wait is over.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the studios in the wrestling capital of the South, it's another terrific episode of The Bengebuster Show. Please welcome your host, Tony Binge.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Bengebuster Show, coming to you right here in the studios of the wrestling capital of the South, Charlotte, NC. And man, I'm so excited today about today's podcast. We got a lot to talk about, but I'm excited because my co-host is back. I am talking about none other than the Playboy rock and roller himself, Chris Plano. Chris, what is going on, stranger?
Woo, terrific, Tony. It's been way too long. I am fired up for tonight's show. We have got so much to talk about in the professional wrestling world, the independent wrestling world, the music scene, and boy, 2023, we are off and running with a bang.
Yes, we are. And man, I hate to start the show off with doom and gloom, but unfortunately, that's what's happening. Jay Briscoe passing away unexpectedly in a car accident just a few days ago. Very, very tragic news. I met Jay at WrestleCade this past year, and you talk about a down-to-earth, super nice guy. That guy was he was very, very nice.
Man, I know, Tony. Earlier this week in the wrestling world, really on all levels, really from the WWE to AEW to TNA Pro Wrestling and through the independent scene. And gosh, what a tragic accident and others that were involved as well. And just the Briscoe name in the wrestling business over the decades. And what a great tag team they were as well. And what a great career. Cut too short. I mean, how does this happen? Why does it happen? But it happens, and it's I even said to you, hey, weren't they the tag team that worked, the rest of the Rock and Roll Express at Ricky Steamboat's, final match? And it just brings shockwaves to people. You just never know these days.
No, you never know. And that's why, a lot of times when I leave the house, I tell my family, when I leave, I'm like, hey, I love you guys with all my heart. My wife goes, why do you always say that? I'm like, because you never know when I walk out that door, am I coming back? And my dad always taught me when I was younger the same thing. When you're leaving, it doesn't matter if you're leaving your friend's house or your job or whatever. When you leave, you tell the person that you're leaving how much they mean to you, because you never know, that might be the last opportunity either one of you have.
Tony, you never know. You just never know. There's just so many crazy things happening in the country, in the world, and life is precious, as they say, and no matter what age and what kind of life you lead, you just never ever know. And it's freak accidents like this that just it's kind of like just time stands stills all of a sudden, and you just never know. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, you're right. I'm with you on that 100%. But definitely a loss for the wrestling world and the community. And I know the accident happened a couple of days ago, but definitely condolences to the Briscoe family and friends. And this one's going to be a tough one to get over, and it's just tragic. Yeah, it really was. And my heart goes out to his family, and I know I know you probably seen the same thing I've I've seen several videos of him with his kids, and man, his family was his life. And to look at him, you wouldn't even think that, but a definite family man for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the fans, they show up to the arenas, they show up to the venues, and they see, a wrestler or wrestlers in the ring, and just like when they see, terrific Tony in the ring running his mouth and this and that and beating guys up. But, outside the ring, you're a much different person than that. So, I mean, a lot of people get blindsided by that sometimes because they only see one side of that individual from what they see, what is, directly in front of them.
Yeah, that is definitely true. So, like I said, fans, if you're out there listening, when you leave your house, tell your family, tell your friends how much they mean to you, because you never know, that might be the last time. And speaking of shockwaves, Chris, still talking about the wrestling world, last week we hear, don't ever say never in pro wrestling. Vincent Kennedy McMahon returns to the WWE. He used his power stroke and came back.
Yes, he has, and some shockwaves were sent through. The offices of WWE up in Stamford, Connecticut. Obviously, with Vince McMahon's daughter, Stephanie McMahon, stepping down from her head role as CEO of the company, which I think caught a lot of people off guard, because she's really has separated herself from the company and wanting to be on the fan side of things by what she was saying. And now Vince is coming back into the fold, into the picture of what was a gloomy picture a few months back. And something's definitely brewing. Something's definitely in the works.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I was just sitting here looking. I know I'm a stockholder in WWE, and I'm looking, and I was contemplating, especially when I heard them talk the other day about Vince had signed a new thing stating that he could override everyone and pretty much make decisions without confronting stockholders. And so I was almost ready to pull the trigger and sell my stocks, but something keeps telling me to hang on to it. So I'm going to hang on to my stocks for a little while longer to see how much money I can make off the WWE. But I mean, it's crazy.
Tony, you look at this stock of WWE, 10 years ago, which would be put us January of 2013, the stock was around, $8-9 a share.
Yeah.
It went public back in the early 2000s, or actually, in late 99, the stock went public. This stock has really done well. I mean, for itself, over the since this announcement, I think the stock has gone up, in just the last month or so, about, $15 or $20 a share. Overall, it's near an all-time high. It's around $90 a share right now. And, it's pretty tempting to sell. I think the thing with WWE is, when you play this game in the market is, how high can it go? It's really,
right.
What you're playing here, speculation of a sale is out there. They've talked about maybe an international acquisition to the WWE. Netflix might be interested. Disney might be interested. I think there's a couple of suitors at the table that are definitely interested, not only in the product, but also the content as well, and the library of what they have for the WWE. So Vince McMahon coming back into the fold could be for several reasons. And then also this Monday's the 30th year anniversary as well, I believe, for Monday Night Raw.
Yes.
A lot going on. And hey, it wouldn't put it past me to maybe even see him show up possibly this Monday night. Anything, I think, is wide open at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you just never know. It's like anything could happen. To kind of steal something from Vince back in the 90s, he'd always say, anything could happen in the world wrestling. And that's kind of what's happening now.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen. I mean, you just don't know. I mean, yeah, anything can happen. I mean, it's a public, here's the thing with the WWE deal. if and when it does sell, if the McMahons sell it, that still remains to be seen. Vince is the majority stockholder. And God knows what the rest of the family has just overall. But it's not going to be a sale that's going to we're going to sell it Friday and someone owns it Monday.
Right.
It's going to take some time. But if you're a shareholder, you could get paid out here. Depending on, especially if a bidding war takes place of some sort between a couple of external companies. We've seen some crazy things happen before where, or it could just sell roughly to where it's at now. You just don't know where it's going to go. But, gosh, I'm thinking if the stock hits 100, 105 or 110, it'd be really tempting to say, hey, I don't know where this thing's going. I might want to get out.
Right. Yeah.
But again, I'm not a stock analyst. I mean, though it's been on a hell of a run. Especially over, the last, couple of months here, it's jumped $20 in value, which, for WWE is a lot. For that to happen, and a lot of it's on speculation, and you just never know, where it's going to go. It's always like you're looking into a crystal ball.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think right now, Tony, you're in good shape. It's just, it's how far you want to gamble, and push.
Yeah. That's it. That's
because if God forbid it drops, $5 or $6, $7, you're like, oh darn, I should have sold the thing, when I when I had the chance, So you just never know with this stuff. But, I think right now I think it has a little more to go. I think you might see the stock go up a little more,
Yeah. I saw it went up today. I was really looking at it. I was like, maybe I'm going to go ahead and sell it. And then I was like, now hang on to it. But
yeah,
I think I'm gonna hang on to it and ride it out a little bit longer, and maybe even buy a few more shares and just see how much money I can make. I've made money so far, and so who knows? Maybe I'll make enough money, Chris. I can fly us out there to LA to see WrestleMania live off this stock.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. You just never, ever know. But right now the stock's on a great run. You just never, ever know. God forbid any bad news comes in. This McMahon scandal that's still kind of looming out there. Things can, just as it's going up, it can go right back down, and can do a reverse. But, it's always tempting, when a stock gets in over the $100 barrier, it's always tempting, especially if you bought in at a low price.
Yeah.
Though it is a novelty. At the end of the day, the stock market's a business. When you look at some companies like, the WWE and Disney and, even the Boston Celtics, the NBA team shares of stock.
Right. Yeah.
Some of it to people, it's a novelty, to have it, or McDonald's or, and then so everyone looks at it differently. But if you're in it for a business and to make money, then you would want to look at it a little differently.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm probably one of those guys that you would call a day trader, because that's what I do. Like, I watch the stocks during the day. I'll buy a few stocks here and a few stocks there, and then while it's in the green, and then once I see it going in the red, I'm like, maybe it's time to get rid of it, and boom, I get rid of it, and so it is what it is. But I have fun with it. I have fun with it, but I always say, okay, I put X amount of dollars in. When stock starts to drop and it gets close to what I've put in, boom, I sell, because I don't want to lose anything. If I break even, I'm happy, but when I lose, I'm not happy. So,
no. Yeah, and that's a safe way to play without getting too aggressive. And, depending on what kind of companies you're investing in and not going too crazy with things. I mean, you can kind of tinker around. I own stock. I haven't traded stock in a while, but everyone's got their different opinions. There's definitely, there's definitely a risk reward at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Of some sort. Like I said, unless you're looking to hold on to it as a novelty or a keepsake or something, or just to have,
just to say, hey, I own stock and blah blah blah. I know. I was listening to Eric Bischoff's podcast a couple of days ago, and he was talking about when he first got hired as the executive vice president of WCW, and someone suggested to him, said, "Hey, I think he said it was Larry Schiller, but had told him, hey, now that you're an executive, you're going to get X amount of stock in the company. If you listen to me, I'll make you a millionaire." And he said, sure enough, he had all these stocks of WCW, and when they sold, he said that Larry called him up and said, "Hey, remember when I told you I was going to make you a millionaire?" And he said that he had forgot all about the stocks. And he said, yeah. He said he was at dinner with his wife. And he said, well, just want to let you know that now that WCW got sold, we can cash those stocks in. And he said, sure enough, I had about $1 million worth. So you just never know. You never know,
You never, ever, ever know. So it's legalized gambling.
Yeah, exactly. It sure is.
I mean, but here's the thing, even the good thing is, even if the stock goes way down, you go, you're always going to have the shares, which, my grandfather always told me that's a good thing versus some other, investments that are out there or crazy schemes or things like that. At least in the stock market, you're always going to have the shares, of a company. Even if it goes down, it'll come back eventually, and you kind of, ride the waves, the ups and downs, and, and then you kind of go from there. If that's any good advice. I know we're not a financial
no, we're definitely not that. We're just definitely shooting the bull. But
let's just say it's probably a safer way than if you're playing the lottery or casino gambling or that kind of stuff. You don't walk out with anything but what you win or lose. At least if the stock does go down, you still own the shares and with a chance for it to come back at least.
Right, that's for sure. Now, Chris, what I like to talk about as we get into as we kind of talking WWE, we're coming up just in a couple of days on the anniversary of the very first Royal Rumble that was held on January the 24th, 1988. And Chris, do you remember who won that Royal Rumble?
In 88, I do not know who won that Royal Rumble. I could probably take a guess and be wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe Ultimate Warrior, maybe. I don't know.
No, it was Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Okay.
So Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Was the Warrior even in it?
Yeah, who knows, right?
Right.
But the very first Royal Rumble has so much to it because it was held in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on January 24th, 1988, with an attendance of 18,000. And the idea for the Royal Rumble match was really constructed by Pat Patterson. The rules were that each wrestler had to draw a number between 1 and 20, and then every 2 minutes, someone else would come in the ring, and as the years went on, it got bigger and bigger, and I think it went from 20 now to 30. But not only did we have just the Battle Royal Rumble, but there was also matches in between. So some of the matches on that card was Ricky Steamboat taking on Ravishing Rick Rude, the Jumping Bomb Angels taking on the Glamour Girls. That's the girl wrestling back in the day. Then, of course, Hacksaw Jim Duggan won the Royal Rumble by last eliminating the one-man gang. And then from there, we went on to another match with the Islanders, Haku and Tama, taking on the Young Stallions, Jim Powers and former Horseman Paul Roma. And I say that as trying to be funny. But really, that was the matches on that card. But now, as we go fast forward, years goes by, the Royal Rumble becomes, like the main event, but they have other matches in between. But I always enjoy the Royal Rumble, the Royal Rumbles, because especially now, because that's where they bring people back and do one-offs, and like one of my favorite things, and this wasn't even a Royal Rumble, but they had the gimmick battle, or the gimmick Royal Rumble, where all the old stars came out, and I enjoyed that, seeing the Iron Sheik and Michael Hayes and
right.
and everything like that. But the Royal Rumble was a cool thing, a cool concept. From taking just a battle royal with everybody in there, and you're trying to figure out who's there and who's not. I think the way they do the Royal Rumble keeps it a little bit more organized.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a kickoff to the year, for each new year, I should say, for the WWE. It's a staple that people look forward to every year, and it really begins the road to WrestleMania. If I'm correct as well, it kind of springboards off of this particular pay-per-view into WrestleMania, which would take place in late March or early April.
Yeah.
I had the chance to attend at least one Royal Rumble. We're going way back, Tony. I attended the Royal Rumble in '94 up in Providence, Rhode Island.
Yes.
Which was a great Royal Rumble. It was, I have vague memories of that. I was back in college then, but it was really a good time to see a pay-per-view at that time, which was, national television, and,
right.
we're going big time, and it was, the WWE putting their best talent, front and center. So it was overall, I always liked the Royal Rumble. I like the concept. I like the build-up of who's the next wrestler going to be coming down the aisle.
Right.
I think that's what keeps the fans into it. Who's going to last the longest? Who's going to stay into the end? Can number one make it all the way to the end? Who's the surprise going to be? And then the old timers come out, and it builds it up, and it works, and the concept works, and then obviously the shot for the title at WrestleMania, and it's a good groundwork into the next which would be the biggest pay-per-view of the year, being WrestleMania.
I think my favorite Royal Rumble ever was the one where Flair won the world title. It just seemed like during that one, WWE, I mean, they've always had big stars, but it seems like that year they had the who's who of the wrestling business in that Royal Rumble. I mean, think about the last few in the ring was Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper, and I think Bret Hart was in there, and so there was a lot of big stars in there, and Sid Vicious or Sid Justice, and also with that one, not only did they put the belt on Flair, but they did a heel turn. They turned Sid Vicious heel because he was Sid Justice at the time, and of course you thought whatever. Then him and Hogan, it looked like that him and Hogan were going to go into a program, but I'm not sure what happened after that. But I don't think it ever did. But I always enjoyed that one. That one's my favorite, but probably because Ric Flair won the title.
Yeah, absolutely. And then isn't that where he did the interview about I have a tear in my eye?
Yes,
kind of
with a tear in my eye.
Yes.
Yeah. And that was
he was passionate about it.
He was because he's coming from WCW and all that bull crap that he went through with the pizza guy, and so it was kind of like he was sticking in their face of all those guys in WCW that said he was done, he was washed up. Now here he is on the biggest stage of them all up in New York, and now he's their world champion. So that was and not only that, but he worked an hour-long battle royal, eliminating several people, but being able to stay in there for all that time, because when he drew number 3, Bobby Heenan was beside himself. Was like, how's he going to last? But he did, because he was the man. He had the cardio and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. If there's one thing I can say about the Royal Rumble that I went to live, I really don't remember, much of it, but that particular Royal Rumble was when The Undertaker fought Yokozuna. Oh, yes.
Okay.
And if there's one thing I remember about that pay-per-view is they're rolling, the Undertaker in the casket back to the back, and all of a sudden, like, the casket stops, it comes on the screen, the casket explodes on the screen to those watching on pay-per-view, but the casket was still there in the Providence Civic Center in the aisle, and then they eventually rolled it to the back. But the big thing about that show was that's where they lifted the Undertaker to the rafters.
Yes.
And that I remember. I couldn't tell you a match after that, but that particular scene, cemented in my mind, like, oh my gosh, this guy is being lifted to, the rafters of the Providence Civic Center, on this pay-per-view.
Right.
That he still lives.
Yep. And that, that year, Chris, was 1994.
Correct. Yep. It started in 94. Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
94, Providence, Rhode Island, attendance of 14,500, but a buy rate of 200,000. So do the math on that. They made some money.
Right.
And some of the other matches on that card was, let's see, I'm trying to pull up the matches here. The Brooklyn Brawler against Jim Powers, Tatanka against Bam Bam Bigelow with Luna Vachon. The Quebecers versus Johnny Polo. I'm sorry, the Quebecers with Johnny Polo took on Bret Hart and Owen Hart. Razor Ramon defeated the IRS, and nobody defeats the IRS. Yokozuna was the WWE champion at the time, managed by Jim Cornette and Mr. Fuji, and he defeated the Undertaker in the like you were talking about, the casket match. And then Bret Hart and Lex Luger co-won the Royal Rumble by last eliminating each other. So that's how that went. Here's a list of some of the people that were involved in the Royal Rumble, and I'm gonna call them out in number as they came to the ring. Scott Steiner, Samu, Rick Steiner. I'm sorry, what's this thing doing? Rick Steiner. Okay. Quang, Owen Hart, Bart Gunn, Diesel, Bob Backlund, Billy Gunn, Virgil, Randy Savage, Double J, Jeff Jarrett, Crush, Doink the Clown, Bam Bam Bigelow, Mabel, which we know Mabel is from the Carolinas. He was him and Mo were the men on the mission. I'm sorry, not Mabel, but Mo was from the Carolinas. I think he's from South Carolina. Greg Valentine, Tatanka, the Great Kabuki. I didn't even realize Kabuki was even there then. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and actually, I do vaguely remember him. Yes, that was a kind of a shock.
Yeah, so that was kind of the what they call the Easter egg in the Battle Royal. Lex Luger, Tenryu, Bastion Booger, Rick Martel, Bret Hart, Fatu, Marty Jannetty, and last but not least, Adam Bomb. And as you go back and look at those gimmicks, Chris, we were really starting to get more into the cartoonish 90s stage of WWE right here.
Yeah, we were. And you know, it's funny, Tony, we had great seats, and I remember we had great seats. We were lower level, dead center, right on the ring. My parents actually bought these tickets for me for a Christmas holiday gift.
Oh, nice.
When I went back home, they're like, "Oh, we're going to come visit you in a few weeks in Providence and for the weekend," and we got tickets to WWF. So it's like, oh, great, my parents are coming a few weeks later to visit me for the weekend. And then long behold, and I don't remember, one of my parents got sick and they didn't end up coming. And so I ended up taking a couple of friends of mine one was a diehard wrestling fan.
Oh, nice.
He was like, "You got tickets to the Royal Rumble?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, my parents go a long time ago." I ended up taking them to the show, and they're like, "Oh, these seats." We were like 8 rows off the floor, like right on the ring. We were like right there, dead center. And they were like, "Oh, my gosh, we don't even know you." I was like, "Don't worry about it. We're having a good time." And but, guy, yeah, that Undertaker going, you know, and then, of course, I was kind of a Razor Ramon fan, you know, just with the whole gimmick. And it was just the WWF. I mean,
yeah. Me too.
Yeah, and it was the WWF in town. I mean, for Providence, Rhode Island, back then, they were on the national stage for, you know, a pay-per-view. It was on a Saturday night, I believe, and, you know, it was huge for the city because it's not like they were in New York or Chicago or, you know, they were hosting a pay-per-view, and mostly that arena, you know, hosts house shows, you know, for the most part. So it worked, but it was a good time. But yes, you're correct. It was kind of the going into the gimmicky phase, but I remember, you know, Luger was just so big, and I mean, you know, just things that just sit in your mind.
Yeah,
you know, like, that you see.
Like, I don't remember the video game system or anything like that, but around this time, actually, it was maybe a year before that, so probably 92, 93. But a friend of mine had this video game and went to his house, and he's like, "Oh, I got this new wrestling game." I think maybe the name of the wrestling game was WrestleMania, but as each one of these characters, like the Undertaker and Doink the Clown and Bret Hart and all of them, but after you play with them for a while on this game and built them up, they would come out with these superpowers. And I'll never forget the Undertaker. If you mashed a whole bunch of buttons simultaneously at the same time in a certain pattern, he would shoot out these little demon ghost things out of his gloves, and they would go into the wrestler, and then he'd fall over, and then he could pin them. And I'm like, dude, this right here kills it for me, because like this is why I don't watch the WWE. This is horse shit, you know. And
right,
but now I look back and I'm like, man, that game was pretty fun. You know, but at the time I was a young kid, and I'm just like diehard wrestling fan, and I'm like, this is the reason why people don't believe in wrestling, because this looks fake. This is stupid. Undertaker don't shoot out.
Right.
He don't shoot demons out of his gloves. But
right.
but I missed the boat because I didn't realize that video game was really for, you know, smaller kids, you know, and it was really for fun. But when I was a kid, I expected a wrestling game to be just like real you know, like be just like the wrestling on TV. So kind of funny there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And God, I'm kind of laughing here. I can't remember the dark match, the Brooklyn Brawler versus Jim Powers. That's like the classic.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like, are you serious?
All we needed was like Charlie Fulton or you know, it's one of those guys out, you know. But yeah, I mean, you know, great. Probably only one of the. You know, I mean, I've never been to a WrestleMania. I've never been to a SummerSlam. And, you know, so that probably was, or a Survivor Series. Well, I might have been to a Survivor Series, maybe. Yeah. But definitely probably one of the biggest pay-per-views that I've been to, you know, personally, as far as, because that is one of the 4 cornerstone ones. So, but thank you for turning back the clock.
Oh, yeah. I always like to do that every now and then.
But no. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah. For me, like up until I went to WrestleMania down in Florida a couple of years ago, I never went to a major WWE pay per view. Like I've been to several, you know, Monday Night Raws, but never any pay per views. So So WrestleMania was my first, and I have to say I was kind of let down because I was expecting it to be one thing. But granted, it was the year after we were still coming out of COVID, so things were a lot different then. And I have contemplated maybe going to LA this year to WrestleMania, but I'm still on the fence on it. So I'm still debating on what if it's worth. I mean, if I want to spend the money, because we know LA is expensive. So So I'm gonna kind of hold off on that one before I finally make my decision. But Chris, I'm going to kind of segue a little bit off of wrestling for just a minute. But over the weekend, and this has nothing to do with wrestling, but another celebrity passed away, Lisa Marie Presley. What a shock that came to be.
Man, talk about like what is going on there. It's just like, gosh, these people, and you see their ages, it's like just start shaking your heads. And then now we're hearing stuff about her maid or housekeeper couldn't get directions to the paramedics that were on the way. I read that. I don't, and it's like, another one died of cardiac arrest. And, and they said she was on, the Golden Globe or some awards ceremony just several days earlier.
Yeah, just a couple of days earlier. She was out there.
And it's like, what's, kind of like almost one of the final links, or if not the final link to Elvis Presley. I mean, that people remember. And, you go in cardiac arrest and you try to resuscitate and you die. It's just that quick. It's crazy because, what was she, 53, right?
Yeah, she's 53. 50, yeah.
I mean, a year older than me.
Right.
It just starts making you scratch your head. It's like, good, how is this, how it's just, it gets a little scary a little bit. You start thinking of, seeing this stuff and you're like, man, could this happen to me? I guess. Yeah. I mean, you just don't know.
Yeah. But, so after she passed away a couple of days later, I thought, I've been wanting to watch that new Elvis movie that came out. I think now's a good time to watch it. And Chris, I was completely blown away. So if you people out there want to watch a good movie, watch that one. Because let's face it, Elvis died. I was 3 years old. So I don't know the whole story of his past, or I just knew Elvis was the king of rock and roll and women lost their mind, and I wanted to grow up and be just like him. But dude, his manager played him like a fiddle.
Yeah, I
mean took a lot of his money, and of course at the end, karma got him. But man, I think that's why a lot of times people in show business, it's hard to get a manager that you trust.
I know. It's crazy, man. Everyone's got their hands in everyone's back pocket,
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know where, people are at or where things are. I mean, it's just to imagine, a guy like Elvis, and someone just stealing, blatantly from him, and the stuff comes out years later, or you just never know what's going on behind the scenes.
Right.
And, again, you kind of just see what's right in front of you.
Yeah, it's right there. And you're like, man. But you just,
and then behind this guy's performing like a professional on stage, and you got someone in his back pocket.
Yeah,
behind the curtain, right?
Yeah, I know.
And it's just crazy stuff what you hear, and makes you shake your head at times.
Yeah, it really does.
What do they say? Money makes people do strange things, right?
It does, and they always say money is the root of all evil, and I believe that. That's why I like to take care of my own money. I don't want nobody else being in charge of my money, not even my wife. Because let me tell you, over the years, I've made some choices and I've done some things like trying to be like Ric Flair, and so there may or may not have been a couple of times I went to the ATM machine and knew I had thousands of dollars in the bank, and I made a woman mad at me, and I put my card in, and I go to take the money out, and it says insufficient funds, and I'm like, wait a minute, there was like $8,000 in this bank yesterday, and then I walk into the bank, and you think I walked into a freezer, and nobody wanted to talk to me, only to tell me that my estranged wife had came in the bank earlier that day and drained the account out. So you never know. So now this day and time, I control my money, and my wife controls hers, and then we have another account that we use to put money in to pay the mortgage, the car payments.
We got a triangle going then.
That's right. Because ain't nobody gonna get mad at me and take my money. So not happening again. Burn me once, yeah, great. You'll never burn me again when it comes to money.
On the classic hit movie Wall Street, you remember Gordon Gekko says, "Well, greed is good."
Yeah,
I think a lot of people might have listened to him.
Yeah,
so you shouldn't take that verbatim.
Yeah, that's for sure. That is for sure. Now, one thing I want to bring up on the podcast today, since the last time you and I spoke, I have connected with there's another wrestling podcast out there. It is called the Swanton Podcast, and they go around. They go around and they do these podcasts on independent wrestling, well, anything wrestling, and they have invited me to be on their show. So now I go from being the host to being the guest. So I'm excited about that. And I think we're going to be recording that next Saturday. I'm not sure when it's going to air, but when I do find that out, I will tag that here on our podcast. So I got that going on. I just got back from my winter vacation. As we all know, I like to take a lot of trips. Mm-hmm. So over the Martin Luther King holiday, I packed up the family and we drove out to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, one of our favorite places to go. And Chris, while I was there, as I drove into town, I'm like, man, that's some big snowflakes coming down. And then we went to bed and woke up next morning about 3 inches on the ground. And so I was even excited about that because I didn't even realize normally, Chris, when I'm going on a trip, I'll check the weather but I was so burnt out from work and all the crap of the holiday season. And I just didn't look at the calendar. I didn't look at the, I'm sorry, not the calendar, but I didn't look at the weather app. I just loaded the family up in the car and we just drove to the mountains and got surprised with snow. So I was kind of glad that I didn't know that it was coming.
That's okay. That's a good surprise to wake up to.
Yes.
That's fun. Okay. And if you got out of Charlotte for a little bit, got up to the mountains, it's like a totally different world, isn't it? It's like you're out of sight, out of mind, man. It's a totally different way of living. The people are a totally different space, and it's like, God, what, Charlotte? That's where I live.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Got there, and man, it was a good time, and so I was happy, and got some relaxing in. But although I did get sick while I was there, I don't know if you fans can hear my voice, but I ended up catching strep throat, Chris, while I was out there, and so drove home sick. Went to the doctor, got my prescriptions. They got me on some steroids and some amoxicillin. So I'm getting pumped up and getting better at the same time. Now I don't know. I'm definitely feeling better. My voice is not 100%, but it ain't as bad as it was. So and I know I want to get this podcast in because you and I have kind of missed each other the last few weeks, and so I'm glad that we're able to nail this week's show down. You have anything in your works of travel or any plans coming up, or what you got going on?
Man, no, at the moment, Tony, no. Might hit Myrtle Beach in March for St. Patrick's weekend, possibly. As far as this month, no. I'm gonna just see what bands are playing locally, and then we'll get into the Super Bowl here in February. Then NASCAR starting, the week after that, towards late February, and hey, there's some tours coming here, and I mean we You got Journey and with Toto coming through the area here in early February, and some of the national acts are starting to pick up here. The Eagles are cutting through in April as well, and it's going to pick up some steam here quick with the local acts and the national acts are trying to pick up some money here before the summer concert season hits.
Well, I saw something today, and I thought I was still in high school. Ugly Kid Joe making a return.
Man, he might look good now. I don't know, but man, it's crazy, man. They're all coming out of the woodworks. I mean, I think it's going to be off the hook here in 2023. I think you're going to start hearing a lot of concert announcements here from Live Nation over the next, 60 to 90 days for what the rest of the year is going to look like here. And I know we got a couple of shows already started out at PNC Music Pavilion this summer with Foreigner and Bret Michaels and God knows who else is coming. I mean, so
yeah, Eagles.
It's going to be on.
I saw the Eagles are coming too, but those tickets are a little bit out of my price range.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, Eagles are cutting through. I saw them last year here in Charlotte. I mean, we'll see how that goes. And Journey's cutting through in just a couple of weeks here. So it's. The dates are just all creeping up, and we're going to hear more announcements coming out, hey, WWE's here in a couple of weeks in Charlotte.
Yep, NXT
as well.
NXT will be here.
I mean, you got a lot of stuff coming at you here. It's just kind of wide open, and it's almost like pick your poison a little bit week to week.
Yep,
and the acts are
coming through. Of course, a Bengebuster podcast would not be complete without an announcement of the NAWA having another event, another free show for the fans. I'm going to tell you what, how many promotions do you know, Chris, gives fans a free show? No, I haven't seen any advertise on Facebook other than the NAWA. Now, if I missed one, I apologize, but I don't think I have. NAWA
straight up free, not many.
Nope. NAWA returns to Resident Culture, our home away from home in downtown Charlotte. That's going to be on Saturday, March the 11th. Bell time 6 p.m. And if you fans out there around the Charlotte area don't know the address, that's going to be at 2101 Central Avenue in Charlotte, right downtown. Minutes from everywhere. And from what I'm hearing, it's going to be huge. They're going to be like I think there's going to be a heavyweight title defense of Big Donnie, the newly crowned television champion who just and also bunkhouse champion Dre White. He defeated one of my good friends, AJ Frost. So to become the television champion, I believe also the bunkhouse champion. Incidentally, I was supposed to be at the bunkhouse Stampede, but end up that was the same weekend that I had my trip to Gatlinburg. So for my first time in 30 years of doing shows, I had to cancel, and I hated it. But the great promoter Michael Elliott said, "Hey, no worries, we'll take care of things. You go, recharge your batteries and get better." And so that's what I did. But while I was away, this is what happened. Dre wins the bunkhouse and the television title. So a lot coming up, going on with the NAWA. Also, we're Chris, I'll tell everybody this, a little tricky or a little secret. For 8 years, I have been pounding on this high school or this middle school to let me come in and do a wrestling event in the Charlotte area, and I think he's finally starting to crack. So hopefully here in the next little bit, I'll be able to make an announcement that the NAWA will be making a return to the Lake Norman area of North Carolina,
nice.
which is right outside of Charlotte and minutes from your house, my house. So hopefully that will happen. But like you said, a lot going on. Wrestling shows, rock shows, country shows. I am a little disappointed. I heard the other day that Hank Williams Jr. is doing another concert this summer. I thought, yes, I get to see Hank again, but Hank ain't coming anywhere near the Carolinas this year, so probably have to miss him this year. But a lot of other bands and a lot of other acts are coming. So I'm excited about this coming summer. The things that we're going to get to do together and hang out together. And man, last summer we did the stadium tour and we rocked out and had a good time. And so I'm looking forward to doing some more of that this coming summer.
Man, and I mean, you just got me thinking here, Tony. If this show in Lake Norman could come to fruition, I know you personally have got some unfinished business with Jimmy Valiant to take care of, and a couple other guys probably on the list as well.
Yes, I do. So I will definitely
have to knock them all out in one night.
Boom, 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 and be done with it.
It will be Boogie's final appearance ever.
That's right.
You better come see it.
The final Boogie Nights. Now, and now our last order of business. I know this podcast has been just like a scrambled egg, everything thrown together. But I kind of like these because it's like a conversation. We're just going all over the place. But today, 2 days ago, that it was the birthday of Motley Crue. January 17th, 1981, they was the first time they played together. And now, Chris, as the world tour is about to get started up here in the next couple months, Motley Crue, for the first time ever, think about this for a minute, guys. First time ever, Motley Crue going on tour without Mick Mars.
It's hard to kind of wrap your hands around it a little bit because they've been together for so long.
Yes.
But this happens, and we can start pulling out the laundry list of bands who do not have their original lineup, on stage. And, then we can have a whole podcast on this.
And there's a ton of them. You're right. There's a ton of them.
Is the fill-in adequate? Absolutely. I don't think anyone's going to doubt it. Is it Mick Mars on stage? No. So it's going to be interesting to see what the fan reaction is going to be. The band will have to deal with it, but if you're going to see the show, then that's the show. And this is where they're at. If the show ever comes back, I think the closest stop to here this year is Columbus, Ohio. I want to say I might be off a mile or two. I think they're in Nashville as well, maybe. And so I don't know. It's going to be different, but hey, I mean, you and I have seen bands without the original lineups. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess maybe it grows on you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that one year that you and I went to see Foreigner, to me, I mean, they still sounded great, and I had a good time, and we rocked out. So, but it's gonna be the ones that are more diehard fans.
Right.
And I am a diehard fan, but I'm also understand Mick's position. I mean, Mick has been battling with this for a long time. So I get it 100%. I get where he's coming from. Now, if they kick Mick Mars out of the band and he's no longer a part of Motley Crue, and then they bring in this other guy, that would change a lot for me. It would also change a lot for me if I had bought tickets and hoped to see Motley Crue like everybody else has, and now it's not Motley. Well, I mean, it's still Motley Crue, but not Mick Mars. But I have heard and seen a lot of videos with John 5, and I think he's going to fit right in and do a great job.
Yeah, no, I think he's going to do a great job. I think they're doing a couple of gigs in Atlantic City to try to break him in. And then they're going to hit the road, and they got the overseas tour. They got the, a handful of dates here in the U.S. And, with Motley Crue's production and the stadium production, I'm sure there's going to be clips. I'm sure there's going to be segments of Mick on the big screens. I'm sure they're going to incorporate it tastefully in a way where I think the fans will still get it at the end of the day. And I think you're a hardcore fan. If you're a hardcore guitar fan, I get it. But then look at the flip side. Hey, it's still 3 of the 4 original members.
That's right.
So you got Vince, you got Nikki, and you got Tommy banging the drums. So they're playing the tunes, and I think they will do it in a way where I think you will see, and I'm speculating here. I think you will see appearances of Mick Mars from videos or concerts in the past popping up on the screen without diluting what the other lead guitarist is doing on stage.
Right. Yeah. And I think if your seats are far enough back, you won't even know the difference.
Hey, who knows? Motley might even, I don't know. They could do anything. They could even shoot a video of Mick talking and saying, "Hey, I'm here. I'm with you guys. I'm here in spirit. I'm passing the baton." And, he kind of passes the baton along to the guy, and he comes out and enjoy the show, and we're going to rock out tonight. They could do a myriad of things with technology these days. And, I'm sure they're with the $1 million production they have, I'm sure there will always be each night on the stop, a nod back to Mick Mars.
Oh yeah. No doubt in my mind. So I'm excited, to kind of see how that goes. But, anyway, I think that's going to wrap us up this week, fans. Chris, you have anything else left before we go off the air?
Man, Tony, we covered it all and even gave stock financial information tonight. So
we did.
That's about a wrap. But hey, don't take any advice. I don't make any guarantees. But with that said, hey, it's been a great week. We're in 2023. There's a lot to be excited about, and let's keep it going. Can't wait for the next show. And I know you're getting ready for that NAWA show on Saturday, March 11th as well, just before St. Patrick's Day, and that one's going to be out of control, and looking forward to everything coming at us.
Yeah, it's going to be fun and exciting, so I can't wait. But fans, for Chris, I'm Tony. We will see you next week here on the Bengebuster Show.
Thank you for listening to the Bengebuster Show. Make sure you like us on Facebook and download us on your favorite podcast platform.